It is election night in America. Polls close in Virginia in 1 hour. From right now, the country's watching as well tonight how one issue has galvanized voters there, that education. Plus, win or lose, Glenn Youngkin may have rewritten the GOP playbook by invoking former President Trump without mentioning him by name. Will Republican candidates down the road follow suit? And here's a question for you. Should members of Congress be allowed to buy and sell stocks? They have access to a lot of information the rest of us don't. Great to have you with us on this election night. Live from our Chicago studios, the Donlon Report starts right now. Good evening. 1 hour from right now, we will be watching for the results from the hotly contested race for governor in Virginia. That is our Pulse of America tonight. You can sum up in one word why Virginia is the most watched race in the nation: education. The polls show it, although it's hardly how the campaign began. In their final pitches to the voters, both candidates hit on that issue. Here's Republican Glenn Youngkin.
We will teach all history, the good and the bad. The good and the bad. America's the greatest country on the planet. We have an amazing history, but we also have some abhorrent dark chapters. We must teach it all because we can't know where we're going unless we know where we have come from.
So Youngkin jumped on this issue after a now well-publicized misstep from Terry McAuliffe during a debate. Here's that.
I'm not going to let parents come into schools and actually take books out and make their own decision.
You vetoed it.
So, yeah, I stopped the bill that I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach.
So since that moment, there has been a more than 40-point swing among voters in Virginia on the issue of education, and that swing has gone in Youngkin's favor, a dramatic shift for sure. Youngkin has not only closed the gap on what was once thought to be an insurmountable lead for McAuliffe, he has pulled ahead in some polls in the final days of the campaign. Highly charged school board meetings have fueled voter interest in education throughout Virginia. You certainly remember some of these scenes from the past, at least a couple of months anyway, including one father getting arrested after his daughter was assaulted by a boy in a bathroom. That ignited debate over gender-neutral bathrooms in the state. McAuliffe has been trying to make up for that education misstep ever since it happened, and he did as well last night. He brought Randy Weingarten, the president of the American Federation of Teachers, on stage with him. That's one of the nation's biggest teachers' union. He was there with more on his pitch on education, and here's a bit of that.
I want to build the best education. I want every child to have a world-class education here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. As your governor, I am going to raise teacher pay above the national average for the first time in the history of our great Commonwealth.
So we will see if that decision pays off. Weingarten was instrumental in keeping schools closed a lot longer than many parents wanted, and Youngkin campaigned on keeping schools open. That's where we start tonight. Again, less than an hour until polls close, and we begin with our colleague Leland Vittert, who is in Washington tonight. Leland, a Republican hasn't won statewide there since 2009, but it sounds like this is sort of a 50-50 proposition. Why don't you handicap it for us an hour before the polls close?
Well, the problem with handicapping it for you is that all of a sudden there's videotape of it and you can play that back either way tomorrow. So,
well, okay,
it's a dangerous thing to do, my friend. I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you like this, and I'll tell you what to watch for, which is suburban Washington, that's specifically Loudoun County. You talked about the sexual assault that happened in that school bathroom, and there was that famous fight at the school board meeting.
Right.
That happened in Loudoun County. That is ground zero. Biden won that by 40,000 votes just a year ago. Double digits. We're going to get at about 7:30 tonight what is called early voting and absentee ballot data. That's the first dump of data. If Terry McAuliffe and Youngkin are within 5 points, Youngkin doesn't have to be ahead, but if McAuliffe isn't ahead by more than 5 points, it is going to look very, very bleak at 7:30 tonight. If, on the other hand, Terry McAuliffe is ahead by 10 points in that early vote data from Loudoun County, well, it actually might be something he could pull out here. So there's no question that Youngkin has the big mo, as they say, the momentum.
Right.
You'd a lot rather be Youngkin right now than you would McAuliffe. But still, the math is on McAuliffe's side. Virginia is a Democratic state.
Nonetheless, Leland, we have, as you pointed out last night, I think learned something about potentially the GOP playbook moving forward and how Glenn Youngkin was able to navigate these former President Trump waters and do it very effectively.
Exactly. Glenn Youngkin will not say the word Trump. Terry McAuliffe will say it dozens of times in his speech, and that's because Glenn Youngkin has basically treated President Trump like the crazy uncle who said, thank you very much, but don't come to my wedding, and I certainly don't want to see you at Thanksgiving, but I love you. And he's given a nod to the crazy uncle's kids, if you will, and he said, you know, to all the MAGA voters, I believe what you believe, but I don't necessarily do it in the way Donald Trump does it without saying Donald Trump's name. That has really worked. Glenn Youngkin has made this a referendum on the thing you talked about, education, which is this proxy for critical race theory and other issues. And then he's made it about Joe Biden. Terry McAuliffe wants this to be a referendum on Donald Trump. And undoubtedly, that's because Donald Trump is deeply unpopular in those deep blue suburbs outside of Washington, D.C., but Donald Trump is not running. He's not on the ballot. And McAuliffe's having a very difficult time convincing voters of that connection.
Leland, do you think this has to be a victory one way or the other by a certain margin for us to really learn anything from this? In other words, if it's close, do we still learn something?
Well, if it's close and Youngkin wins, we still learn a lot because politics is about winning. Elections have consequences. If Youngkin wins, this proves that there is a path to win in a blue state for a Republican by not wrapping yourself in the MAGA flag and in Donald Trump and having him come campaign for you. That is huge. If, on the other hand, it's close and McAuliffe wins, people will talk about it, but still he won. McAuliffe won, and that will be emboldening to both President Biden and to the progressive left on a national level.
Well, we'll know a lot more starting right in the middle of your show on Balance coming up in the next hour. So we'll look for results coming throughout the evening. Leland, good to see you. Thanks, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, as the final votes are cast, what is the result in Virginia and what will it mean tonight for both parties, their midterm hopes? And has Glenn Youngkin, as we mentioned, figured out a strategy for Republicans going forward? Let's ask Jonathan Cott, former senior advisor for Democratic Senator Joe Manchin, and Cassie Smedley, a former RNC spokesperson, now with Rising America Political Action Committee. Cassie, let's start with you. And on that question I asked Leland, is Youngkin providing a template here for how to navigate the Trump waters down the road for Republican candidates who aren't necessarily maybe in a deep red MAGA state?
Right. I think win, lose, or draw, he's providing a template for how to make a campaign and run a campaign on the issues that voters care about. And that's something that every candidate should be keenly aware of for his or herself, but to also look at how this is played locally in Virginia and on the national narrative. This race has all been about what voters actually care about: education, safety in their communities, having a say in their child's education, and much less about the national narrative. You've heard McAuliffe say, I need a win, Democrats. I need Congress to pass these multi-trillion-dollar bills. And in fact, I think he's going to be happy that he doesn't have that win because that's not what voters want. So again, I think the template going forward for all candidates is to pay attention to what voters are telling you they care about and then craft your campaign around that.
Jonathan, what about the national narrative? Because there are some who certainly think this is something of a referendum on the White House and the Biden administration. What do you make of how close this apparently is, considering how far ahead McAuliffe was?
I think these races always get close the year after an election, so I don't put a lot of stock in the national narrative. Glenn Youngkin has run a good campaign, so has Terry McAuliffe, but Virginia is a close race. I know Democrats have been winning it statewide in the last decade, but it is still a contested state. I think Terry McAuliffe would have benefited from an infrastructure bill passing. I don't spend a lot of time in Virginia. When I go out there, the roads need fixing. So the metro needs to get much better running out to Dulles Airport. And I think a lot of voters would have been happy if we passed an infrastructure bill that Terry McAuliffe could have campaigned on. And I think Terry McAuliffe and Mark Warner know that better than anybody.
Jonathan, what happens if McAuliffe, what does it say if McAuliffe loses?
I think Democrats should sit back and say, okay, he lost. Why did he lose? And yeah, we should have put more wins on the board for the president. We should have passed the China competitiveness bill. We should have passed the infrastructure bill, and that would have given Democrats something to go around and tout as victories, as showing that they can actually responsibly govern instead of just campaigning. And I think that would have helped Terry McAuliffe a lot.
Cassie, he didn't get any of that. To your point, education seems to be the big local issue there. McAuliffe brings in Randy Weingarten. Is that the right closer on this, do you think?
Well, I think McAuliffe certainly took a stand of saying, I'm going to prioritize the person who's in the organizations which are lining my campaign coffers, as opposed to parents and students, which have been telling me over and over, there's a problem in our schools and you're not listening to us. But I would also take the point of Democrats not only had nothing to run on because they've been shown incapable of getting anything done in Congress, but as you see in poll after poll, we saw polls this weekend, we're seeing it in the early exit polls, the issues that Democrats are prioritizing, never before that I can recall have they been more out of step with the issues that voters are saying matter to us.
Like what?
Whether that's having a say in your child's curriculum in school. We know that was a huge turning point and blunder for Terry McAuliffe, but also having a safe community, supporting the people who help keep your community safe, like the police. Also just feeling like you have a community where your kids can roam safely, but also where there's value in your home and your neighborhoods, and you can find the supplies you need on your grocery store shelves. All those things are happening at every kitchen table in the Commonwealth, but also across America. And none of those seem to be the priority of today's national Democrats.
Jonathan, I'll let you hit that if you want. But I also wonder what you think about the president not being here during an election day. I mean, obviously, there's no way to reschedule these climate summits, and ideally he would have been back by now, but the optics on that aren't necessarily good on election night, are they?
I mean, there's an international climate summit that he is the president of the United States. I think he is in the right place where he should be, and I think Terry McAuliffe is doing exactly what he should be doing on election day, is talking directly to voters. I will point out that most of these points that you've said that, you know, Democrats aren't focused on are mostly made-up issues. Like critical race theory is not being taught in Virginia. Republicans are making that the school choice issue. Terry McAuliffe
Having a say in your child's education is not a made-up issue. Parents have spent the better part of the last year looking in these classrooms.
Can I finish?
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Can I finish?
Finish the point.
Critical race theory is a made-up issue that Republicans have capitalized on in Virginia. He was talking about not letting parents come and go, like, start fights at school board meetings. Those parents should be set aside and, you know, provide a better example for the children. So that's not an issue that Democrats are going to focus on. They're going to focus on getting kids back to school safely, teaching them, making sure they're safe in schools, supporting the police. Joe Biden said it famously. He does not support defunding the police. So these are issues that have been somewhat mostly made up by Republicans, and they seem to be doing well on it, but they're not real issues. Democrats are focused on fixing your roads, getting you back to work, making sure you have vaccines, making sure you can go mothers can go back to work and have paid family leave. All right, but if I may, then why did he bring in as his closing argument one of the people who was most and primarily responsible for keeping kids out of school for an extended period of time, despite the fact that thousands of Virginia families said, wait a minute, why can my next door neighbor who's going to a private school return to school or some hybrid situation? And despite the fact that we let teachers jump the lines to get vaccinated.
I get the point, Cassie. Let me ask him, was she the right closer, Jonathan?
Yeah, Randy Weingarten's been a champion for education for decades. I grew up with her in New York City. She's a great person to come in and tell voters that we're gonna have the backs of teachers and students and schools. That's what Terry McAuliffe is gonna stand for. So yeah, she's absolutely a great person to come in at the last minute.
And she's been a champion for keeping kids out of schools, despite the fact that the science said they could go back.
Well, she's been a champion for keeping kids safe.
We're gonna leave it at that. I understand, Cassie, you're on with Leland as well in the next hour, so we'll get more from you then. Jonathan Cott, Randy Weingarten is joining Leland coming up in the next hour. Jonathan Cott, former senior advisor for Democratic Senator Joe Manchin, and Cassie Smedley, executive director for American Rising PAC. Thank you both for your time. We appreciate it. We'll see what happens tonight.
Thank you.
We will be following the governor's races in Virginia and New Jersey throughout the evening here at NewsNation. To follow the latest on that, use your phone's camera on that QR code right there. You can follow the instructions to download our app. We'll give you the latest updates on the race as soon as they all happen. Again, On Balance going to have more on the live results coming up at the top of the hour. Don't forget to check out our website for the latest, newsnationnow.com/results. It's our show.
I do believe this is a major step forward. The data look really, really good. If you've got a child who's obese, has diabetes, asthma, any of those, I think it's a no-brainer. You really need to get it done.
Early last year, several U.S. senators sold off stocks after sensitive briefings on the dangers of a new coronavirus just starting to emerge out of China. Today, we're learning the SEC is still investigating Republican Senator Richard Burr, who unloaded up to $1.7 million in stock on February 13th. Roughly a week later, the market tanked. Recent SEC filings say he even called his brother-in-law, who immediately did the same thing. Burr is one of 4 senators who sold stock after that briefing, including Democrat Dianne Feinstein and Republicans Kelly Loeffler and Jim Inhofe. Here to talk more about this, our friend Tracy Burns, financial advisor with UBS Financial Services. Tracy, simple question off the top. Should members of Congress be allowed to trade stock?
Look, anyone that has access to more information than you and I do should not be allowed to. You know, Nancy Pelosi could probably get Jeff Bezos on the phone way quicker than you or I. So therefore, it makes it an unfair playing ground. And to be quite honest, the 4 of them that got out before the market tanked, I'd be curious to know if they got back in, because if they didn't, they missed a magnificent run in the market. Right. So then they get burned at the end of the day. But if you have access to people, information, anything else other than what the rest of us have, it should be off the market for them.
Well, it begs the question, why do they then? Why are they allowed?
Exactly. It's a great question, Joe, and I don't know the answer to that. To be honest, when I was with Ernst & Young, we had very strict policies. If we audited the client, we couldn't own the stock. When I was a journalist and we sat in newsrooms, we couldn't own stocks because we got people on the phone. So lots of places have these rules in place. I'm not sure why our congressional leaders don't.
Yeah, there was a Business Insider article that listed 43 members of Congress that it says have violated the Stock Act. I guess the question also, Tracy, the follow-up would be, where does the line get drawn? I mean, spouses, families, where is the line?
And that's the thing, and it becomes really fuzzy and very squirrely trying to figure this all out, because we could say no members of Congress, but then they go home and they talk about it at dinner. So again, when I worked for an accounting firm, it was layers back. No one that I came close to could own stocks as well. I think it's really, really, though, a trust issue, which, one, we have no trust in our congressional leaders, and 2, they're not giving us the opportunity to have any trust in them, because they're clearly trying to play beyond the rules that you and I play, and that, I think, is the biggest problem here.
Well, you mentioned trust. Let me use it in a different way. Several of these lawmakers have said, well, you know, it's controlled by a trust. So I don't have anything to do with it. I guess, do you believe that? I mean, they're getting daily briefings, as you said, on things we don't get to see.
Yeah, so I guess it depends, right? I have clients that don't want anything to do with their portfolio, and it's not in trust. I have clients that want to know every single solitary thing, so it really depends. I don't believe that they don't ask questions. I don't believe that they don't come home from, you know, top secret meetings and maybe slip a little information to their advisor, but that's just me. I would be super skeptical, but I'm Sicilian, I'm skeptical of everyone. I think that someone should come out, though, and eventually put their foot down. They're going to have to work through capital gains issues with all these leaders, because they probably will be sitting on gains and won't want to take on the tax. There certainly will have to be ways around this, but they really have to put a stop to it, because it's just getting worse and really getting more and more kind of insulting to the rest of us.
Well, I mean, when you outperform the market by 20%, that's going to raise some eyebrows, I would think. But my other question on this, Tracy, is that when you find out that they're in these briefings that again, we don't get access to, it does make you wonder what in the world is happening. Because I know you're not an investigator, but just from the outside looking in, when you read some of these articles, it seems like obvious insider trading. Am I missing something?
Yeah, and you know what else it does, too? It prevents people from getting in. There's so many people sitting on the sidelines after, you know, the financial crisis. You know, people who have gotten burned over the years are sitting on their cash, and they're missing this market run. And all the more, you know, we've heard for years now that Wall Street is crooked and you can't compete with them. Well, now you can't compete with Washington either. So if all these people are making money, and the little guy that's working really hard, that just wants to put some money in a retirement account and save for a rainy day, if he or she thinks that it's rigged, they're not going to invest, and that's not good for any of us at the end of the day.
Hey, Tracy, I saw an article in the New York Times the other day, and I thought of you. It said the headline was, "Women may be better investors than men." And Fidelity looked into more than 5 million accounts over 10 years. And the takeaway on this is invest like a woman, and it's more of the way women trade or don't trade. What's the lesson here?
Well, kudos to us, because when we do it right. But I think that's the biggest problem here. So what they're saying is that women maybe are a little bit more methodical, maybe think through things a little bit more, not as impulsive as men. Huge generalizations, right? I know a ton of men that are so methodical. But if men are selling on impulse and they're generating gains, they're generating fees, that maybe eats into their profit.
They
I'll tell
trade
you what,
a lot
Joe, the
more.
biggest problem with this, totally. And they incur fees and they incur capital gains. The biggest problem here is so many women aren't even in the game. And that is the biggest problem I think that I see with women and investing. So many are afraid of it. They think it's a man's world and a man's game, and they don't even want to play. You have to get in it to be better, and they're not even in it. We need more and more women to just push the buy button on something. There's like $30 trillion transferring from men to women over the next 5 years. That's a ton of money, and we need to learn what to do with it. So we have to get in the game, too, to compete.
Right. What if I were investing with a female member of Congress? How would my return have been?
Yeah, that's a great question, and fodder for another show, I'm sure.
All right. Hey, Tracy, it's always great to see you. Take care. Thanks for the time.
You too, Joe. Thanks.
Minneapolis votes on whether to replace their police department with the Department of Public Safety. So what kind of impact would that have on the force? Maybe on crime, which is already on the rise nationwide. We're going to talk to one of the people behind this effort, get some answers to these questions next. And I'll speak with the local police chief in Georgia, whose new policy is shoot to incapacitate, not shoot to kill. And it's getting a lot of attention nationally. Back after this. Let's return now to Virginia, where it's just now about 30 minutes left in that state's vote for governor. NewsNation's Kelly Meyer is at Democrat Terry McAuliffe's headquarters, and she joins us now. Kelly, McAuliffe's been saying the early vote will favor his campaign, and the early vote was actually, it sounds to me like, pretty strong.
Yeah, that's right, Joe. And early voting generally favors Democrats, but really it all comes down to where this turnout is. The McAuliffe campaign really hoping to hold on to these Democratic strongholds in cities across the state. But we are seeing a high turnout, not only in urban areas, but rural and suburban areas. That's where we've seen a strong momentum for the Republican candidate, Glenn Youngkin. When we were on the trail with him last week, seeing that surge in support in these smaller areas. We'll see how that impact is on the smaller counties and the turnout here tonight. But overall, we are seeing that this turnout is set to exceed the governor's race in 2017. That was an election right after former President Donald Trump won in 2016. So we saw a lot of Democrats coming out. And then we are seeing now a referendum on President Joe Biden here. So we are seeing a lot of Republicans coming out here. But as you said, 30 minutes from now, we will see how these results start to come in. We're going to start seeing those returns from the early votes, from the absentee. Those will be able to be counted. They already started checking them a week ago, getting them checked in and verified. So we will see what those results are, hopefully, in the next 30 minutes here, Joe.
Yeah, we'll see how long the night is, but we'll all be watching for sure. Kelly Meyer, great to have you. Thanks for the update. We appreciate it. Continuing our election coverage tonight, a major issue on the ballot in a number of cities across the country is police reform. Voters from Albany, New York to Denver, Colorado are deciding on whether to overhaul their police departments. It's an issue that's come front and center since the police killing of George Floyd last year. In Minneapolis, meantime, voting is underway on a measure to replace the police department with a Department of Public Safety and a comprehensive public health approach. Joining me now for more on this, Janae Bates, Yes for Minneapolis Communications Director and campaign co-founder. Janae, it's great to have you. We've been trying to get you on our schedule for a long time. Let's start with what this would look like, the main impact of this if it passes.
Yeah, so this gets to do two really important things for the people of Minneapolis. One, it allows us to expand public safety. Currently, we are calling on police officers to be everything and to do everything when it comes to public safety, even though the majority of calls that come into 911 are not actually law enforcement related. And so expanding public safety means that having a Department of Public Safety gives us the opportunity to add qualified professionals like mental health providers, like substance abuse specialists, like homeless outreach coordinators to work alongside police officers, making a truly comprehensive department. And then the second thing that it does, which is really important, is it adds a layer of transparency and accountability. Currently in the city of Minneapolis, we just don't have that because of the current infrastructure where it's mayoral control only. So adding city council members and a department commissioner will make it possible.
Is this at the expense of more officers, Janae? What happens to the number of officers in Minneapolis if this passes?
Currently, we have a fully funded police department, though we do know many officers have actually left after the murder of George Floyd.
30%.
Yeah, correct. That is correct. Many of them left, even though we are still paying for them. So that is important to note that the city of Minneapolis is still paying for a fully funded police department. And we're also paying another $30 million plus in overtime, another $60 million in police brutality lawsuits and murder cases. And so what we know is that adding these qualified professionals will start to lighten their load. They're getting called in to be social workers. They're getting called in to be mental health providers. We should actually have the professionals who do that and are trained to do that and well-disciplined to do that, and have police officers go into things that they are qualified and well-trained for.
What happens if this fails, Janae?
Well, you know, if it fails, then we will continue, quite frankly, more of the same. We'll keep rehashing a lot of the reforms that have been demonstrably seen through the Minneapolis Police Department over the last 150 years. We'll probably keep bumping our heads against that wall until we're ready to go ahead and change this charter in another few years.
I know you've invested a lot of time and energy in this, Janae, and I guess just from someone on the outside looking in, I know this vote has been delayed twice. It sort of feels like the momentum has kind of waned, at least after last summer and all of the issues with George Floyd. Do you get the feeling, honestly, now that this, what would you put the chances of this passing?
You know, the reality is this came out of community. This came out of a bunch of Black and brown folks, a bunch of young folks who are ready for their communities to be safe, both from police brutality and in community harm. And police officers just aren't able to do that right now, not with the armed police only response we have. And so while it may be true that it has been over a year since the murder of George Floyd, I think folks are still ready because, quite frankly, we'll continue to have these cases come up over and over again until we do something today.
Realistically, though, I mean, it seems like an uphill climb, Janae, and it is a little. It seems a little shaky right now. What would you put the chances of this passing tonight? Do you think it's too close to call?
I mean, well, I would also say it's really important to note that a huge reason why it's an uphill battle is because of a disinformation campaign that has made this about something that it's not. And so in the event that this doesn't succeed this time around, we'll keep pushing for it. And it will be clear that it's those who are holding on to status quo who have slow walk change.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, and we'll all be watching. It's great to have you with us tonight. Janae Bates, Yes for Minneapolis Communications Director. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Amid all this talk of police reform, one Georgia police chief is pushing his own approach to policing. He's calling it shoot to incapacitate, or shooting to stop a deadly threat without killing the source of the threat, as often occurs in police encounters. Joining me now for more on his alternative approach, LaGrange, Georgia, Chief of Police Louis Dekmar. Chief, it's great to have you. I mean, I think all of us have heard this in some way, shape, or form, where someone will see an incident involving police and then say, why didn't they just shoot him in the leg? Why is this so controversial and out of the box thinking?
Well, and it's really not out of the box. Europe and the Middle East have been doing this for decades. In fact, if their policies don't require it, in many instances, their laws do. Everything from police being required to fire non-fatal shots or shooting in non-vital areas. And I think the difficulty for the police in the United States is for reasons that are historic and are not clear to me. We've always taught shoot to kill. In the 70s, it was changed to shoot to incapacitate. was shoot to stop the threat. But the targeting remained the same, which is center mass, where your lungs and your heart are.
But the situation in Europe, though, Chief, is a little different, right? I mean, there aren't nearly as many guns, and I don't know that the violent crime rate is as high. And you have had pushback on this idea from your own officers, have you not, and others in law enforcement?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's part of the challenge, is that those that have been critical have not looked at what the training entails and what the policy addresses. You indicate firearms. This isn't advocated for firearms. We looked at 5,000 police-involved shootings, 5,000, about 1,000 a year for 5 years, and somewhere between 20 and 30% of those are individuals armed with knives, hammers, screwdrivers, machetes.
Right.
A knife in Haifa, Israel, is no different than a knife in LaGrange, Georgia. And so what we ask our officers to do is to be discriminating in the nature and the type of the weapon. And if time and distance allows, then put that shot 8 to 12 inches lower, where you're more likely to stop the threat if you hit the pelvic girdle, and the mechanics of going forward are immediately stopped, as opposed to shooting center mass, where sometimes it takes 60 to 90 seconds to bleed out. And that's why you see these individuals being shot multiple times.
Right. You had this happen, actually. There was an incident in, I think this will spread, Chief. I mean, what's the reaction been in LaGrange, first of all? Has it helped with the relationship between police and the community? And do you think an idea like this will catch on nationwide?
Well, funny, most of the community members that talked to me said, I thought the police already were trained not to kill somebody if they could avoid it. And with regard to the whole notion of trust, all of us in the last decade can name a city that's been defined by a questionable or controversial use of force. And so we have to look beyond the legal requirements of use of force, because there's also a community expectation. And where the legal has not met the community, you see the initiatives that you're seeing in Minneapolis, where the people are going to decide what the standard is if the courts and the legislatures don't.
Right. Okay. Listen, it's great to have you. LaGrange, Georgia Chief of Police Louis Dekmar. Appreciate the time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Coming up, opening statements in the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse. His lawyer set to argue self-defense. We're going to speak with someone who was on the ground when those protests and riots were taking place, and how the wording of protests versus riots is actually on trial here maybe as well. And the, quote, mother of all caravans continues to make its way through Mexico. What will the U.S. do if that arrives at the southern border? That same journalist will talk about that. He's covered both stories. The trial for Kyle Rittenhouse is underway. He's accused of shooting 3 men, 2 of whom died in Kenosha, Wisconsin last summer. Both sides giving their opening statements this morning.
Kyle Rittenhouse, who was 17 years old at the time, had armed himself with an AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle loaded with 30 rounds in the magazine. And using that rifle, he shot and killed Joseph Rosenbaum, an unarmed man.
Rittenhouse is facing several charges, including first-degree reckless homicide, use of a dangerous weapon, first-degree reckless endangerment. But Rittenhouse's legal team argues he acted in self-defense.
Kyle Rittenhouse protected himself, protected his firearm so it couldn't be taken, used against him or other people from Mr. Rosenbaum, who'd made threats to kill, and the other individuals who didn't see that shooting attacked him in the street like an animal.
Joining me now for more, Town Hall senior writer Julio Rosas. He was on the ground in Kenosha when all of this happened last summer. Julio, let's start with your observations and your main takeaway from opening statements today.
Right. So, I mean, the main takeaway, especially from the prosecution side, is just the fact that they are definitely trying to paint him as somebody who was just out there to kill just people. And I saw, in full disclosure, I saw the second half of the shooting where he shot Anthony Huber and Gage Grosskreutz, if I'm saying that correctly. But this just shows just how much of a chaotic situation this town experienced last year. I mean, to show how of a small of a town this is, the shootings only took place less than a mile from where I'm standing right now. Right. And the courthouse, which is where everything's taking place, is where rioters first attacked on the night of August 25th. And so it's very important for the defense to highlight those facts. And actually, I'm actually kind of surprised at the prosecution, because the last witness for today, the prosecution was asking on the situation that Kenosha was experiencing in the days leading up to August 25th, which, as we all know, there was riots going on. And so it's a very interesting tactic, because in my view, I would think that they would try to distance themselves from the riots that were happening, because it's because of those riots. That's why not just Kyle Rittenhouse, but other armed individuals were here to protect businesses from further damage.
We'll talk more about that in a minute, Julio, but let's start with something else we heard yesterday on this program from attorney Randy Zellin, talking about the judge not wanting lawyers to call the people shot victims. Here's a clip.
If the judge is looking to play things down the middle and not permit these complaining witnesses to be called victims, why then would you go 180 degrees the other way and say, well, it's okay to call them arsonists or looters or rioters?
So, Julio, to your point, I'm not sure really that there's any debate over what was happening those nights while you were there. I mean, cars had been burned out, businesses were damaged and destroyed. Is it beyond that, though? Does it become a case of why would someone like Kyle Rittenhouse roll in there and walk around with a rifle when it was clearly there was a riot going on?
Well, that's the thing. And what I'll say to those statements is just that the judge didn't say he can just call them rioters and arsonists and looters. He said that if the evidence backed it up to describe them as such, then the defense could call them that. So they're not just throwing them out haphazardly. There has to be evidence in order to support those claims. And when it comes to victims and not being able to call them that, it would be incorrect to call them victims if the verdict shows that Kyle Rittenhouse acted in self-defense, because they wouldn't be victims anymore. They'd be assailants. So I know there was a lot of controversy over that ruling, but the broader context just shows that actually it makes a lot of sense in how the court case is based out of.
Right. Julio, you were there. I mean, I'm curious, when you talk about Kyle Rittenhouse, again, inserting himself into this potentially with a rifle, you saw what happened. He shot someone outside the car dealership, and that sort of, I guess, touched off clearly what happened after that. At that point, it was on. I mean, I don't know how this gets reconciled in court. What do you think it comes down to?
Well, like I said, the defense team is really going to stick with the fact that there's video evidence and eyewitness statements, such as myself and others, saying that and showing that he only shot people who were actively attacking him. And it's not just me that's saying that. It's backed up by video, and it's backed up by other eyewitnesses. Because the thinking is, well, if he's just there to shoot random people, there were plenty of opportunities for not just him, but the other group of armed people to do that as well. But that's not what happened.
Well, he did. That was the first victim, was it not, Julio?
In what way?
The first victim before the two in the street.
And so, well, there's video of Joseph Rosenbaum chasing after Kyle Rittenhouse into that car parking lot, and Kyle Rittenhouse turned around after his avenue's escape was cut off from the cars that were parked, and in addition to a gun from across the street being fired by another individual. So that appears, from what we know, that appears to be the decision at that point for Kyle to go from flight mode into fight mode, because Richie McGinnis, who I also know, he said that Rosenbaum at that point, when Rittenhouse turned around, was lunging to reach for his gun. And so it's reasonable to assume that Rittenhouse was concerned that not only was Rosenbaum going to attack him, but he was going to use his own gun against him.
Well, it's fascinating to unwind, Julio, and I know you'll be covering this trial, and we'll certainly be in touch as it continues to unfold up there in Kenosha. Thanks for the time, Julio. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Coming up, Houston, we have a chili pepper. That's in tonight's American Snapshot, how astronauts are making space a little more spicy. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.